Hey everybody, it's the Young Turks once again. I'm Iadarola, and Jayar Jackson and Emma Vigeland are both here.
It's no longer a panel, this is just normal.
It's just what we've got.
Yeah.
This is the future.
Right.
And the reason for that is that Cenk and Anna are off doing important things, and eventually they'll be back to help us talk about other important things.
Yeah.
But in any event, we've got 2 great hours. I'm gonna be leading for one, Emma for the other. Jayar is gonna be here as long as we can keep him.
Yeah.
So that's good. And throughout those 2 hours, we're gonna talk about a number of things. There's a lot coming out of last night's Democratic debate, and we're just a couple of days away from South Carolina. And in fact, not that many more days away from Super Tuesday. So we are gonna be talking a little bit about that as well. Emma, in the second hour, what are some of the things we can look forward to talking about?
Oh, well, there was an ABC reporter who was suspended, I think unjustly, so I'm gonna get passionate about that topic, I would say. And now I need to look at the sheet. Yeah, Biden.
That's a good start.
Well, it's all, I care about so many topics. I can't even think about the ones I prepared for. Biden lying about Mandela and his protests there in South Africa and much, much more.
Yeah.
Where's Mandela?
Yeah, apparently dead. That's what.
He's dead.
It's going to be hard to have the weirdest lie about Mandela, but Biden is working on it. Now, as I alluded to, South Carolina is coming up soon, and you're definitely going to want to tune in. And I know what you're thinking. Wait, what are you talking about? Tune in? It's on a Saturday. Surely you guys won't be here. But no, it's just too important, so we will. You can tune in on Saturday, February 29th, for the Young Turks South Carolina primary coverage. You can join myself, Emma, Jayar, and Adrian Lawrence as well for live updates and analysis. Coverage will begin at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on, I almost said the whole thing, TYT.com/live. There were some H's and some T's and some P's in there. We also will have members only coverage starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time. And look, this is obviously important because it's a primary, but also it's the last thing that can even theoretically provide momentum going into Super Tuesday, which we have high hopes for. And so I don't think you're gonna wanna miss that. But anyway, with that, why don't we launch into our first story? We're gonna be talking about the debate for a little bit. Did you notice that the crowd was oddly animated during last night's South Carolina Democratic debate, but not necessarily in ways that make sense to a rational mind? Here's a few examples.
At least I didn't have a boss who said to me, kill it. The way that Mayor Bloomberg
never
is alleged
said that.
to have said to one of his pregnant employees. People want a chance to hear.
For the record, if she was a teacher in New York City, she would never have had that problem. We treated our teachers the right way, and the unions will tell you exactly that.
Well, Mayor Bloomberg, Senator Warren has.
I saw a statistic the other day. When I came into office, 0 New York City schools were in the top 25 of the state. When I left, 23 out of 25 were from New York City. We've cut the gap between the rich.
Mayor Bloomberg has a solid and strong and enthusiastic base of support. Problem is, they're all billionaires. Now, if you look, on the other hand,
it's okay. So there were boos, and as we're laughing along to it, it's not just like, oh, boo. It's like, boo. She cast a spell on our village, boo! That's what it sounded like. And by the way, if this is your first debate that you're tuning into, that's not normal.
No, and I mean, yeah, the Democratic base loves billionaires and gets really offended when Bernie Sanders goes after them. Also is really in favor of insensitive abortion comments. I mean, why boo a female candidate talking about that? That's entirely out of whack with where the Democratic base actually is. If this audience was representative of that Democratic base, and if it was purposely not representative of that base, that would make a lot more sense. Obviously, we'll get into the details.
Oh, it's so fun. Again, this is the third time I get to talk about this because this crowd was awesome. So, I mean, I cut up a few of those moments, and I left out the part where, I mean, the cheers for everything that Bloomberg said, and then the boos for anyone else who said anything towards him that wasn't working out. So I did cut out the one moment when Bloomberg said, "I did have a ham sandwich this morning," and they went, "Whoa!" And then also, Bernie Sanders said, "Hey, Mike Bloomberg is spending a lot of money on ads," and they went, "Woo! It's all true. It's just true. It's what's going on." I mean, not the ham
sandwich part. I suspected you were trolling us.
Just sorry. So it was strictly based off of making sure that it sounds a certain way and you create this narrative from the crowd. Now, we felt some of these moments, there's been moments in the crowd when they respond. And actually, one of those victims of that was Mike Bloomberg in his first debate. He was trying to defend the things that happened in his company and the way he joked with female employees. And there was pauses and there was groans from the audience at that other debate. They were like, ooh, oh. Yeah. That's normal when people get startled by something and they kind of murmur to themselves, but the outward boos, this was a different kind of level.
Yeah, you're so right. Just the primal screams, like her entire family was killed in front of her.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, no one, to the audience, no one's gonna die. Just relax, okay? Yeah, and look, something is obviously up. Nobody was watching that and thought this is a rational set of applause and boos. It's like the laugh track for a sitcom got on a delay or something. Something is up, but we don't necessarily know exactly what, although people have been trying to figure it out. So let's walk through a little bit of what we've tried to discover at least. Speculation on Twitter that, by the way, that hypothetically that it wasn't randomly biased in some way, but that Bloomberg had been involved, was only amplified by a local news article that went viral, which claimed tickets started at a whopping $1,750 to $3,200 for donors looking to sponsor a package of events, including the debate. An update was later published to indicate that these ticket options were removed from the Charleston County Democrats website. So I say that for full disclosure, no one knows for sure exactly when it was removed or if it was removed that you couldn't actually still buy the tickets in some form. We do know that during past debates, such as the one that took place in Miami, Florida last year, donors were able to purchase sponsorships for access to the debate night and related receptions, and many wondered whether a similar arrangement may have been what gave the audience a pro-Bloomberg vibe. The South Carolina Democratic Party, which had access to some of the tickets for the evening, said explicitly that it did not sell individual tickets. And we should point out that a Bloomberg campaign official said the campaign did not pay people to attend the debate and cheer for Bloomberg. So we don't know for sure yet exactly how you could get the tickets and all of that. But I want to be clear, we have criticized crowd reactions in the past, but we don't do it just randomly or always. Multiple debates have gone by that we haven't said anything about it because people cheer when they cheer and it makes sense. They boo perhaps sometimes, but rarely. But you know a stacked debate when you see it. Bloomberg is not at 70% in the national polls. Bloomberg is not known for a devoted fan base, particularly in South Carolina. So it simply doesn't make sense that he would have the most passionate yellers. It's like they had 7 Cenk Uygurs in the audience all cheering for him.
It doesn't make sense that they would be cheering for New York City schools when they're in South Carolina and don't really have any connection to that. And again, booing Elizabeth Warren, that comment should make you uncomfortable. Cenk pointed it out last night. It shouldn't make you just yell at the top of your lungs, but when they say donors were able to get access to this debate, that might make sense. When I said it sounded like that woman had her entire family killed in front of her, it was maybe the equivalent for some of these donors who've spent so much money pouring into the Democratic Party, and then Bernie Sanders is the likely nominee at this point. So it's very traumatizing for them.
Yeah, the Bloomberg campaign, fine, they denied it and said, fine, we didn't buy tickets. I'm willing to buy that, fine, let's go with that route. We'll take your word for it because at the end of the day, I don't think it worked, first of all. So whatever the plan, even if it wasn't a plan, even if it was just a group of folks that sat together and happened to have seats together and were like, hey you guys, let's go ahead and boo and cheer at the same time. Whatever level it was that this group did what they did, it didn't work. So I don't think a bunch of people are gonna go, oh man, that debate really went to Mike. But the thing is, it still seems coordinated. So say we all decide to show up at one event and we saw each other like, oh, hey, what's up, John? Hey, let's make sure that Bernie gets a lot of good cheers. It's still coordinated and not organic. Whether or not you're paid to sit there or not. You're supporters of his, which is obvious, for whatever reason, and then you are still trying to swing the tone of the debate in your direction.
Yeah, let me give you one other bit of information. So this is coming from a spokeswoman for the DNC who tweeted, let me give you the facts. The tickets were divided up between the DNC, the campaigns with equal allocation. So theoretically, they all had the same number of supporters. The South Carolina Democratic Party, CBCI, CBS, and Twitter. We invited local and community leaders and DNC supporters. This is the most diverse audience. And look, that might be. This probably means nothing, but I will remind you that that same DNC spokesperson who just put out that statement was on Fox News earlier this week attacking Bernie Sanders viciously and dishonestly over his comments about Cuba under Castro. And so can we necessarily take for granted that what a spokesperson for the DNC is saying is going to be honest when they clearly have taken sides in this primary? And in particular, when this spokesperson is known for being sent out to right-wing media channels to do hatchet jobs on the front runner.
No, hashtag unity, right? That's what she represents. But I don't trust the Bloomberg campaign saying that they didn't, give out tickets or pay people to be there. I'm sorry, I don't trust them. And I certainly don't trust the DNC, why would I? So there's really no one who's neutrally confirming this information. So I know it's shady, and I know that the audience reaction does not match the actual perspective of the Democratic electorate. So that's where I'm at right now. We don't know what happened, but I don't fully buy what the DNC and the Bloomberg campaign's putting out there.
And I will also remind you that we talked this morning on the Damage Report about some of the limited polling of what people thought about that debate performance for all of the different candidates, and they didn't overwhelmingly think that he did a great job. And so the people in the crowd weren't reflective of the audience at home. But I will just say this, and again, we don't know for sure, although potentially if they did purchase tickets, I mean, like the Bloomberg campaign has as many leaks as the White House, so maybe we'll find out about it. But if the question is, did the Bloomberg campaign use money as a stand-in for support? Like, the consideration is going to be different than it is for any other campaign in here, because they have done that from the very beginning. They bought all the ads so they didn't have to run in the first 4 contests. They paid off a bunch of mayors to give him endorsements when he finally ran. They've got these fake social media managers texting all of their friends when they don't even support Mike Bloomberg. They're paying off influencers on Instagram to make memes about him when those people don't support him either. They're using this platform for influencers to have them make video testimonials about Bloomberg for money, again, when they don't actually support Bloomberg. We could go on and on. At every step of the way, they have used his vast financial resources to pretend that he is a support that has never actually manifested in any sort of genuine, grassroots, authentic, and passionate fashion.
Well, you have no reason to do that if you actually don't care about those people that will be part of a grassroots organization towards your campaign. So if you're not gonna serve those people that will be energized by your policies, then you can't get them no matter what. The only recourse you have left is to do it this way.
Yeah. Okay, with that, we should probably go to our first break, but we do have a lot coming up. Really fast, I did want to get a couple of the members' comments because you guys have been talking to us about this story. So let's see, No More Trigonometry sent in a comment saying a fake crowd cheering for Bloomberg while he runs ads in the middle of the debate. No problem there. Totally true, and again, remember the DNC changed the rules effectively to allow him on the debate stage. So again, you have to take with a massive grain of salt everything that the DNC says about this.
After he donated to them.
Exactly. Dr. Doctor said, I can't believe Bloomberg bought the audience. I was so mad I had to donate to Bernie again. And what limited information we have about donation patterns yesterday imply that a lot of people actually did that. And so thank you to our members for sending those comments.
You misread the tweet. He said backed, not bought.
Exactly. You can become a member by going to tyt.com/join. And yes, with that, we are gonna take a short break, but lots more to get to after this.
We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you wanna get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment.
Welcome back to the Young Turks, everybody. Emma and Jayar and myself. A little bit of commentary from you before we get back to ours. Gabby and Marita said, Bloomberg's audience had a level of artificial enthusiasm usually only reserved for pageant moms or maybe minor league sports mascots on meth. That is totally true. Oh, and also, so we have hashtag TYT Live. You can leave comments with that hashtag, we might read them. Grizzly Gallagher had a great point, and I don't know why I didn't put this together, but isn't it weird that the debate audience was vocally supportive of Bloomberg when he's not even running in their state?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He effectively, like I'm not saying they're all gonna take it this way, but he flipped off the state saying, I don't need to campaign to you. I can bypass you and go to Super Tuesday. And they're losing it for a guy that they literally can't vote for.
It's just, there's no way. There's no way it's authentic.
So weird. please, please, if you're involved in this campaign and you were part of this plot, leak it to Ken Klippenstein, please. Anyway, I did also want to let you know that if you enjoyed this sort of conversation, would like this sort of conversation, but with us at a restaurant, that's a possibility. Thanks to our Aspiration Sweepstakes, this is the last week that you can register for it. It involves getting a round trip flight, hotel, and dinner in LA with Jank and Anna and myself. Simply registering for the sweepstakes gives you sweepstakes entries. So despite the fact that there isn't much time, you still have a very good chance of winning. You can see all the details there, and you've probably heard us tell you many times, but you can head to tyt.com/dinner in LA to register now and get more information on how exactly it works. But I look forward to the meal, perhaps it'll be with you. And with that, why don't we jump back into it?
Yep.
Okay. The candidates are making their last push for votes in South Carolina, and Pete Buttigieg wanted to show that he was supportive of the working man and woman, and so he went to where a Fight for 15 protest was going on, but it didn't exactly work out the way that he planned. Here's a bit of video. Okay, so if you're just listening to this on the podcast, he was amongst the protesters. He's now fleeing. He's running down the street, being pursued by aides or security, I'm not sure. There are some protesters following him too, but he is dead set. He's not looking at anyone. He's just eyes straight. Don't look left, don't look right. Don't acknowledge anyone's around you, just walk. Walk, man, walk.
It is going on for a really uncomfortable time.
Okay, so he's engaging with one of the activists now.
Today. What other committees? How? What structure barrier are you going to change for the Black
Okay, and so about 5 seconds later, he was gone, and I sort of get it. They're chanting,
Pete can't be our president.
Yeah.
Right, which is amazing, but-
Pete can't be our president, where was 15 in South Bend?
In South Bend,
okay.
yes.
Right, which is a very good spontaneous chant because it kind of rhymes. President in South Bend.
Maybe they're ready for any of the candidates to come out.
Oh my God.
They got a brutal sire one.
Bloomberg, don't you dare.
No.
Actually, please go try to talk to the Fight for 15 protests. I've got to see what chant they have in store for him.
Yeah.
There was a couple things. First of all, I love black folks. I mean, that's who we saw there. Of course, there was more than just black folks there as part of the protest, so bear with me. But there was almost a beat with that chant. There was, first there's the overlaying, which we heard. We can't, no Pete for president, where was 15 in South Bend? But underneath it, there's it's like we had a layered beat, man. We make it happen. No matter what, you're gonna hear us. And if you don't like it, it's just gonna be stuck in your mind like a top 40 song.
And he just
so
like
later
his
tonight,
his
still there.
smile just melting as he hears what's happening. I mean, it probably took him a second, but yeah, he got it eventually.
And number two, you show up at this event and you're Pete Buttigieg and you know who Pete Buttigieg is because you're him. And you don't know what your history is on things like the minimum wage. And you show up at this event where activists know your history. You think they're gonna just forget, or just you show up and now you're running for president, Pete? We're not gonna bring anything about your record.
You're assuming his self-awareness outweighs his arrogance, which is a very big assumption with Pete Buttigieg.
I think it's a little bit more complicated for Pete Buttigieg than that, because so I wanted to find out. Because I'm not familiar with his record on that particular issue in South Bend. Most Americans aren't about any issue involving Pete Buttigieg in South Bend, because despite the fact that he's been running for president for a year, we're just about the only people that ever sent a reporter there to find out. And so I did a little bit of research, and here's the thing. The minimum wage in Indiana is $7.25. In March 2019, the South Bend Tribune called for a $12 minimum wage. Columbia, South Carolina newspaper, The State, reported that Buttigieg successfully raised the minimum wage for South Bend city employees to $10.10 an hour back in 2016, but ran into a roadblock with Indiana state law that, quote, prevented local municipalities from instituting a higher mandated minimum wage for all businesses. So look, it's just for city employees, and he wasn't pushing for $15 anyway. But here's the thing. He hypothetically did try to raise at least some people a little bit, and he has been saying for more than a year that he does support a $15 minimum wage. And so here's the thing. I can't look into his mind. I can't say if that's any more genuine than any of his other positions. He seems to have wavered on it less than, for instance, Medicare for All, which he used to love and now thinks it's the work of Satan, who is the devil. But he has given people no reason to give him the benefit of the doubt in terms of that. And that is why those people who hypothetically would hear out other candidates, they're not interested in Pete Buttigieg. They don't trust him fundamentally.
Well, why would they? He's not standing for anything in terms of policy at all. He's just staking himself as the middle ground between Bloomberg and Bernie Sanders, who he says is two extremes, and he's the very intellectual and well-spoken person in the middle, who's also very young. His older supporters love that. But I also think there's another layer to this. He has been doing this tour where he's trying to get photos with black people. Ryan Grimm tweeted about it, where it was this very awkward moment where there were 4 black women in the diner, and his aides went up to them and asked if he could take a photo with them, and they laughed after he left, saying, "Oh, he just wants to take a photo of us because we're like 4 black ladies or whatever." And this is exactly what he's trying to do here. I mean, come on, are we pretending like that's not the motivation that his staff and that he himself had, some sort of photo op? So of course, in addition to his, the way he's been campaigning recently, also they can tell that this is inauthentic and for the cameras.
Yeah, there were the fake endorsements for his I believe it was the Frederick Douglass plan.
Right.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's part of a pattern.
Yeah, it's traditional politics. It's the way he thinks everything's supposed to work, the way it used to work. You just go take your photo ops, and the people there are so excited to see a presidential candidate that they're like, "Oh yeah, great." Because usually when you see maybe someone that's recognized or a celebrity or whatever, your favorite sports hero, you'd be like, "Oh, can I take a picture with you?" It's never the other way around. I met Tim Duncan once in the mall. Tim Duncan didn't say, "Hey, can I take a picture with you?" No. Why is the guy who's known and who's supposed to be the figure the one asking for pictures? Because he gets something from it. And if you notice, as he was walking out, the one you said he did talk to one protester, to his credit, right? But that was, everyone else behind him. I recognize those faces. Those are reporters from major networks. CBS,
Yeah, I did notice one.
NBC and all those guys. There's like 3 of them following him and have the mic in his face. So he knows who to talk to. He's like, I still gotta get this photo op. Here, okay, they're chasing me out, but at least there's, I forget her name. She's with CBS, I believe.
Yeah, I forget her name.
So, and then right there in the blue shirt, he's from Fox. So if this gets a couple shots of me talking to one of these constituents who's been yelling at me, at least maybe I can get a positive look here. It's still, like, if I'm gonna talk to anyone, it's not gonna be these reporters who are gonna ask me, how do you feel about how these folks are yelling at you right now?
And his campaign hasn't exactly been super friendly to press. I think he only has 1 pool reporter. Biden has been extremely cagey to press, way more than I think, well, I'm excluding Bloomberg, just people, when I've been on the road, seeing how different campaigns have responded, but Buttigieg is up there.
And also, I'm sorry, one more thing. I'm gonna let you finish, Doug. But if you have an agenda, if you have policies, going back to what you were saying about if he had actually something he could stand on, if you had principles, if people are out there and you have these 7 things that are your platform and what you want have happen when you become president, and someone says, "Hey, what about this? What about that?" You can maybe answer those things because you have actually a perspective. You don't have nothing to say. If you have nothing to say, you'll get chased away. If they have something against you, you can address those things. Even if you were wrong before about it, you can say, "Yeah, you know what? I missed the ball on that. This is where I stand now, and I'm gonna tell you why I believe in that." If you have principles, you can voice them. If you have none, you have to run.
Yeah. And look, if you're watching this and you're a Buttigieg fan, it's probably pretty clear that we are not supportive of his candidacy. But I do want to note, way back more than a year ago at this point, when they had their first set of like town halls and Buttigieg was running, I did live commentary of it, and I was generally fine. I gave him, I think, a positive review. I mean, obviously I wasn't gonna end up supporting him, or almost certainly I wasn't going to, but it's as we learned more, we realized who he was, and his appeal is not designed to stand up to that sort of scrutiny, and he has reaped the benefits of that. I will also just quickly point out, I saw someone tweet, and it's very true, one of the worst things about being the same age as Pete Buttigieg is that I know he'll be running for president the rest of my life. And yeah, you think this is his last run if it doesn't work out? Nope, it's gonna go on and on. But he's not the only candidate in the race, so why don't we turn to another. South Carolina is coming up fast, and in terms of endorsements, politicians who could potentially endorse one of the candidates in the state, Jim Clyburn, current House Majority Whip, he's up there as one of the most important, if not the most important, and he has now chosen to endorse Joe Biden, as was expected as of at least the last week, if not longer. So we're gonna show you some video of Congressman Clyburn doing the endorsement. There's gonna be two videos. In the first, he talks mainly about his late wife, but stay tuned because he does tie it into Joe Biden. So here's that.
I was next door at the Nan's breakfast, and they have established an award in my wife's name, my late wife, and they decided that I should be the first recipient of that award. We met on South Carolina State's campus come March 15th, 60 years ago. I'll always remember that date because that was the first day that I was arrested. And I met her in jail on that day. We often talked about the leadership of this country. And there's nobody who Emily loved as a leader in this country more than she loved Joe Biden. And we talked about Joe all the time.
So we're gonna have more in just a second, but I guess we're not too surprised that the endorsement is coming. It had been previewed this week, and it didn't seem, even going back months, like it was unlikely to happen, but probably important in the last push towards the primary.
And I don't think you mentioned it, just that he's from South Carolina, so.
Oh, sorry if I didn't mention that. Yes, that's why I mean in the state he's the most important endorsement because he does represent it.
It was a very moving speech, and I mean, clearly he's known Joe Biden for a long time. I just wish he was endorsing a candidate that was more reflective in the candidate's politics of the, the sentiment tinged with history and social justice that he was espousing there, in addition to the beautiful discussion of his late wife.
Let's go to the other one because I have thoughts about
okay,
the
so
whole thing.
we do have more videos. So here's a bit more of Congressman Clyburn.
Joe Biden and I used to spend a lot of time doing TV stuff together. We got to know each other. I know Joe. We know Joe. But most importantly, Joe knows us.
That's right. That's right.
That's important. And I can think of no one better suited, better prepared. I can think of no one with the integrity, no one more committed to the fundamental principles that make this country what it is. That my good friend, my late wife's great friend, Joe Biden.
So Joe Biden has apparently been courting the endorsement for several months. I don't think he could have hoped for or expected any more than that. That's going to be effective for people who were considering Biden.
A good speech for Joe Biden's purposes.
I don't like endorsements. I don't think they help that much. I think when newspapers say we endorse so-and-so and opinion pieces and the editorial board say we endorse, hey, come out and vote for them because we said so, oh, we interviewed them and let's do that. I think it's all a bit of an archaic process. And people would glom onto because they didn't have as much access to the candidates as we do now. You say, oh man, that guy knows the candidate and I trust him, so I'm gonna go with what he says. All that being said, this is absolutely effective with all of that.
I was gonna say, this seems a bit different than a newspaper.
And AOC's Bernie Sanders endorsement could have saved his campaign, and we'll never know it's counterfactual, but it gave him a boost after his heart attack.
Yeah, it's how powerful I think, and actually how much people take his words, the weight of his words to heart, because with all that, and I still believe all that, but there's some figures in a certain way that they put things and give it to you, even if you still don't agree, because it isn't not gonna change my mind, right? But there's plenty of people that it will, because I trust Representative Clyburn, and he gave us reasons behind it. His late wife was this civil rights icon like he is, and they fought, and man, this is who he chooses? Like, I get it. and it's a rare time when, in my opinion, it's a rare moment when you can get someone who to do this and it actually is effective.
Yeah, I fundamentally think that individual endorsements are very different than newspaper endorsements.
Newspaper endorsements mean nothing. Nothing.
You don't think the New York Times one mattered?
No.
The split?
I think like the Des Moines Register might have mattered a little, but it didn't end up affecting. I thought it was like, okay, this is a kind of a good get for Warren because I thought it was between her and Biden. Ended up not helping her.
Yeah.
I think even individual ones don't really work that much. I mean, people have mentioned before, Tim Duncan was in a Bloomberg ad. He didn't say I endorse Mike Bloomberg, but he said this is what Mike Bloomberg did when we had this relief. I think it was because he's from the Virgin Islands. He goes, when we needed this kind of relief, Mike was there. We did this. He donated this. He gave that. He was giving his story about what Mike Bloomberg had done. So in a way, it's an endorsement, yes. But I don't think anybody's gonna. Again, like I mentioned earlier, it's randomly. I did meet Tim Duncan once, and I thought he's a great, very cool guy. It's not gonna force me to vote for just because Tim Duncan. Good for you, Tim, but it has nothing to do with me. You know.
I will say, I think this is probably the most references to Tim Duncan we've ever had on an episode of the Young Turks.
And John is silently dying.
Yeah,
see if I can pull
I'm
away.
okay.
Hey, I'm just getting back at all the Lord of the Rings things. It was a Lord of the Rings, or was it?
It was Lord of the Rings.
Oh, it was Lord of the Rings.
Or was it the
it
ones
was
with
Lord
the
of the
wickets and
Rings,
I don't know. They're all the same. Is it Star Wars or Star Trek?
Stop it.
It could be both. Why not? You think I can't talk about both? Now, I will make references to each before this show is over. But let's talk a little bit more generally about South Carolina. South Carolina is just a couple of days away, and Joe Biden has gotten the big Congressman Clyburn endorsement that he was hoping for. So what does that mean going forward? Will he end up winning? Let's just go to a bit of, as weird as this is, I was on Chris Cuomo's show last night, and I was asked about sort of the stakes for Biden and for Bernie in South Carolina, and here's a bit of what I said. Already looking amazing for Bernie Sanders. I have no doubt that if Biden wins, he's gonna have a great Saturday night. But what is Monday and Tuesday? What are those gonna look like? Looking to California, to Texas, across the map, the polls are looking great for Bernie Sanders. So it would be great for him to go 4 for 4, and we should at least acknowledge that he pulled off a record 3 out of 3 for the last 2 decades. But Super Tuesday is coming up very soon. There's not a lot of time to transition from South Carolina to a big investment across the entire country.
That's exactly the point. You don't have time, so what you need, Bakari, is you need the win.
Okay, the only thing that would be better is if someday I toss to me on CNN, and in that appearance, I toss to me on TikTok. But anyway, so the point I was trying to make largely was everybody's hoping for one last burst of momentum, but what momentum can there be? You potentially win on Saturday, and you have 2 full days before national contests. So it's a little bit of time to get money, sure, but then you have to actually spend that money. You have to set up advertising campaigns. You have to book all the, you have to do all that stuff across so many states. I think a lot of people are banking on momentum that can't necessarily have the time it needs to have a big effect on Tuesday.
Unless word gets around that Bernie Sanders won the first 4 contests or got the popular vote in the first 4 contests. I know you're more skeptical of that potential outcome than I am, but look.
Do you all want to go on the record?
Well, you want
predictions? Well, what's your prediction?
Bernie wins.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say, like, ooh, I'm gonna be the villain.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm the observer of this bet. I'm the one who gets to. I'm the record keeper.
Why do you think that Bernie's gonna win?
Look,
South Carolina.
I just think the odds are good. I would say 60% chance Joe Biden still wins, right? But I want to make it interesting, and I want to be right if it turns out that way, and I get to rub it in your face.
This is the sort of betting strategy that makes me want to play poker against you. I agree. I think he has a 60 or 70% chance to win, and thus I think he's going to win. And I say that because we're gonna go through some of the polls, but also, look, I have read accounts from people that I trust that going back through the last a few cycles of South Carolina primaries, that one of the ways the polls tend to be inaccurate is that they tend to underestimate older African-American electoral participation. And so for candidates who have that support, they will tend to outperform. And there are examples going back through multiple races. And if he is already up and there's a possibility that the polls could be biased against him, in this case, I think there's a good chance that he'll win.
But Biden is also overrepresented in every poll. So
then maybe it'll cancel out. And he's up in the polls.
But then they're tied in some polls, so we're not gonna know.
Well, let me. So you say they're tied in some polls. I have a graphic, so I'm gonna read my graphic.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, so Joe Biden has 35% support in the Clemson University poll released just days ahead of the contest. Tom Steyer is second at 17. So 35 down to Tom Steyer at 17, Bernie's at 13, then Warren and Buttigieg at 8, Klobuchar at 4. Now, there are other polls where they're much closer, and you never know.
Didn't Brett say this was an outlier?
Where was Biden in that?
Yeah, but Brett's not on the panel. He can't say that. You don't have to say it for him.
I am his spokesperson.
He's talking to me. But anyway, look, I understand. Everybody wants to be enthused and excited, and nobody wants like the brakes to be pumped. But I'm just saying, I don't think you need to be worried about the possibility. If you're a Bernie Sanders supporter, I'm saying, as I am, that Biden might win. If Biden wins, that helps out Biden a little bit. By the way, it certainly hurts Bloomberg, who wants to position himself as the only alternative to Bernie Sanders. And Super Tuesday is coming up just a couple days later, and it's looking great for Bernie Sanders. So I make the prediction because I think that's what the numbers are indicating, but it is not anything approaching the end of the world for Bernie Sanders.
But it's like you brought the one outlier poll just because you knew we'd have this conversation, so you could point to this poll that has Bernie Sanders in like an insurmountable hole when the other polls
it's the most recent poll that I saw. That's why I chose it.
I guess the question then becomes
whoever this at you. Okay, wait, hold on one sec. Okay, let's go to the Real Clear Politics average of all of the polls. You're gonna see a chart, it's got a lot of lines. Biden is the green line, Bernie is the blue line. So you can see on average, Biden had been holding at between 35 and 30. And then recently, probably because of his multiple losses, he has dropped off. He has, in a couple of different polls, you can see the different data points there, jumped back up. And while Bernie is still on average in second, there is a difference there, like a 10-point gap or an 8-point gap.
Yeah, so the question is whichever way it happens, like, okay, say Biden wins and then Bernie ends up second, but it's close the way that Iowa was, right? Even that close. It's kind of when it's based off of the expectations, because Biden has been waiting on South Carolina since Iowa.
Oh my God.
So
since last March, I think.
So like this is one of those situations where, and sorry for the third sports reference, but if there's a must win sometimes, this is a must win. Like for Bernie Sanders, it'd be great if we won, and if we end up close second, we're still doing well. This isn't a killer. This is a must win. So the pressure is more on who's expected to win here.
And here's another sports reference to kill John. Dysfunctional teams do dysfunctional things. When you're a bad franchise and you don't know how to manage your cap and you don't know how to manage your team, you usually can't come up big. And Joe Biden's campaign does not know how to manage his team. And he has never won a primary in his entire life and has run for president 3 times. Second place in Nevada was the highest he's ever done.
But possibly to be exceeded on Saturday. And I will say that I believe that Super Tuesday is the battle of Minas Tirith. It's the last stand of man. But if you don't win Helm's Deep, you don't get to Minas Tirith. So South Carolina is Helm's Deep, okay? And I think maybe in this analogy, Clyburn is Gandalf coming at the last moment to help him or something.
Is Helm's Deep like a grocery store in South Carolina or something?
I'm gonna educate you so much about Helm's Deep and all that. Let's get to Gollum. But anyway, we do have a lot more to get to, so we're gonna take a break. We'll come back, read some of your comments after this.